Well, we started the show just this week with guests questioning the rationale behind seeking independence for Nigeria at the time the country's past leaders did. They questioned the timing of Nigeria's independence and said it's one of the reasons Nigeria is what it is today. A country struggling to become a nation, a place of diverse people struggling to stay united. As Nigeria looks forward to celebrating its 61st independence anniversary, we are staying on the need to build a better country through understanding where Nigeria is standing more than 6 decades since its freedom. Welcome to Village Square Africa. I'm Sulaiman. Bruised, battered, and struggling to stay free from the shackles of slavery and colonial exploitation, Nigerians fought for freedom. It followed a wave of independence by other African countries who had labored under the sheer force of the European masters. Many Nigerians couldn't question the idea of independence, but on an afterthought, there are counter-questions on the readiness of the country at the time. How much that matters is a question of an individual standpoint, as many other Nigerians believe the labor of our past heroes should never be in vain. Military, democracy, Nigeria has tried the extreme and simple, and the results are not totally different. 61 years should bring solutions, and this is where it begins. I have two gentlemen with me in the studios today. Victor Ani-Laju is 2023 presidential aspirant, and he's also the chief executive officer of ePay and convener HELP campaign. And Dr. Monday Ubani, who's the chairman, Nigeria Bar Association section of Public Interest and Development Law. Gentlemen, good to have you both right here. Well, it's in order to say happy independence as Nigeria awaits that big day, October 1. Let me start with you, Dr. Ubani. It's been 61 years since independence, and for many, they're trying to look at the gains or otherwise of a nation as big and great as Nigeria. Tell us, if you were to put this in some simple context, how would you say the journey has been for Nigeria?
Well, Sulaiman, thank you for having me live in your studio. I have not seen you live since after your exit from Channel, so it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.
So happy independent anniversary, and to my colleague here also, Victor. Now, on the issue, 61 years is not a joke for any living being, but it's been a very not too smooth a journey, and where we have arrived, we thank God for certain things, but also we need to also interrogate certain things and know whether we are supposed to be where we are and what we should do to move forward. I'm very happy that in this conversation I'm having a presidential candidate who may have articulated his own idea of what he needs to do differently from others who have probably taken charge of the affairs of this nation. We have not been very fortunate to have the kind of leadership that can drive this country to where we're supposed to be. Transformative leadership, we have not. We've been denied that, and I don't know whether it is by result of the choices we've made over time. But of course, remember that half of the entire thing has been dominated by the military, who were never elected by the people. We also thought that with democracy we would have taken some level of leap, but we have not made any much progress since 1999 to date. If I tell you what we've lost in terms of the kind of money that has been generated by the system, but nothing has been put into the system in order to, activate the economic activities that will take this country to where we're supposed to be. It's not been a very smooth journey, and for Nigerians, Nigeria is not working. But it's working for few. That is what I will, it's working for few, but for majority of Nigerians, Nigeria is not working in the way they would have expected, for it to work. Why do I say so? There are many countries we started this journey with, some countries like UAE, Singapore, some of these Asian tigers. If you see where these countries are now in terms of development, human capital, basic infrastructure, they are so far away that it will take nothing less than 100 years if we are to catch up. And that means they have to wait before we catch up. But I doubt whether we can be able, in terms of catching up with them. So we've not been able to make much progress, despite the kind of resources God has endowed this country with, despite the kind of human capital that we have. We have professors, the best even in the world, that if you go to some of these developed nations, you see the kind of exploits that are being done by Nigerians, either in the medical or in science, in almost virtually area. They are doing so well. But when we come to this environment, we have not seen, the replication of such, reformative leadership.
I'll come back to you,
Yes.
because you've just, for those who know you, definitely they can understand that this is not the kind of mien you see in Ubani when he speaks. It then means that you're pained by what this has meant for Nigeria. And you also said something about the good, that you can get in Nigeria, to the extent that you're asking the question, what's wrong with the environment that has caused this kind of retrogression, to the extent that when these same people go out of Nigeria, they flourish. Now, Victor, Ani-Laju, I'm with Ubani on the same. We're excited to see a young Nigeria coming into the fray. But again, if you look back in time, Ubani will help us here. Many of those we call founding fathers were very young, even younger than you, when they came on the saddle. So tell us, for you, Nigeria, why are you coming on, why are you in the race for presidency in 2023?
Okay. Thank you for having me. Thank you, my learned friend. And thank you for meeting you today. I would say it like this. Nigeria as a country is a project. And every project, you have people who manage them, who make sure that this project comes true. There are generations that handles different projects. We had generations that fought for our independence, right? And we actually got that independence. But I want to tell you, it's not that generation that will develop Nigeria. My own generation is the generation that is supposed to develop Nigeria. My father's generation, which is part of the people still leading us today, they have done their work. Their work is to get us independence and bring us together, right? And which they have tried to do. But where we are failing now is that the same people are still trying to bring the development that we want to see, which is not possible. Looking at what we have today, we have close to 80% of our population are made up of the younger generation. And if you have to do anything to make Nigeria work, you need to engage this young generation. And that is the gap that we see today between the elect and the followers and the citizen. There is that gap. So the power to engage is not there. And why are they not engaging? It's because they still don't understand what Nigeria as a today ought to be. Most of our leaders, current leaders, are still looking at Nigeria the way Nigeria used to be in 1960. So you hear them talk about tribe, you hear them talk about religion, because as at that time, that was what they were battling about. But we have outgrown that level.
You think Nigeria has actually outgrown that?
Yes, we have outgrown that level. At least cross culture, we marry from different zones. We do. Take me for example. I was born in the south. I have my origin from the east. I grew up in the west. I do business in the north. But when you get there, when every of these places are visited, one-on-one, the citizens are united. But when you look at those leading us, their terms, the way they talk, is still divisive. It still talks about zoning, talks about tribe, talks about religion. And Nigerians have grown beyond that. And we are still being dragged backward because the generation that ought to take us forward have not yet emerged. That's why my brother here is talking about visionary leadership. And that's what visionary leadership is all about. Visionary leadership is that leader that can look forward and say, this is where we ought to be, and take us there.
Let me bring back Dr. Obani. Listen to Victor. I have something, that bothers, me as well as some other Nigerians and even Africans, and it has to do with our culture, and it also has to do with where we're coming from. Looking at the leaders who fought for independence, we can actually, throw away their efforts. We should also, quite frankly, appreciate their efforts. It comes back to what Obani said earlier, but if you look at it critically, Nigeria is a country that has, in its own peculiarity, a whole lot that, shows the enormous potential as highlighted by you. And if not what President Buhari said lately about the declaration of a no-fly zone in Taraba State, a lot of people didn't even know that there existed some other mineral potential that people were actually stealing from Taraba State. So it tells you that the country is so blessed. So tell us, how is it that Nigeria, in the midst of plenty and these, fantastic men and women you highlighted in your opening, Nigeria is still where it is?
Thank you. I'm very happy and excited by the enthusiasm of Victor, and then saying that his own generation is the generation that will deliver Nigeria and take us to the promised land. The prayer point for me, if we can have a generation that can lift us from where we are presently. Let's go back to 1960 when these our leaders, got us political independence. You have actually taken time to say, let's eulogize them, let's praise them and appreciate them for what they did. Well, there was no sitting down to say, okay, when we get this independence, what next? Where are we taking the country to? And in order not to allow what precipitated the military intervention, because if they were really, after the country and taking the country to where they had wanted the country to be, that would have been the next line of action. But they just wanted a while to go so that they can have that, flag independence without any planning. So sitting down to say, this is where we should take the country to after we have gotten. And that's why immediately after the political independence, personal and regional interest, cropped up. And where it led us to, remember Operation Wait Here, all manner of things, crises that had left the military with no choice other than to intervene. And then the military's intervention actually retarded our growth. Because from 1960 to 1966, despite all the crises, despite the fact that they never sat down to plan where they would take Nigeria to, there was some level of competition, there was some level of development. It was even recorded that between 63 and 66, the Eastern region was one of the fastest growing economy. Yes, sir, it's in the history. The competition was so tense. The Hausa Fulanis were, really, competing with the West. Of course, remember that the first television in Africa was here.
In Africa?
Yes,
in
sir.
Africa?
Yes, the first television. The same thing with the first stadium. Yeah, the first radio station and all that. That was under Obafemi Awolowo. He was the premier of the Southwest.
The Western region.
The Western region.
So I think then it was just 4 regions.
Yes, 4 regions. The Eastern region, the Northern, and then, of course, the Midwest. Yes. And they were all competing. Come and see competition. University of Nigeria came up, University of Lagos, OAU, that Obafemi will live, they were calling it University of Ife. Then, Abu Zaria came up. And come and see these granite pyramids, you were experiencing in the north, palm produce, in the east, and then cocoa in the west. They were, what happened at that time was they were controlling their resources and were paying certain percentage to the federal government. That was proper federalism in place, where the states, regions control their internal resources and were paying certain percentage. And it was a federation, a federalism down, up, not the one we are practicing now, up, down. So devolution of powers we are given. Do you remember they have Western Court of Appeal? Yes. It's all of them. You know, they had their different constitution. The 1963 constitution. The West had their constitution, the same thing with the East and all that. And they were developing at their pace. They were all, and then competition was entrenched in the system until the military interregnum that actually retarded us. They now came up with the over bureaucratization of the process, in over centralized governance, which even when we now became a civilian administration, we have not been able to remove because the military entrenched it, abolished all that devolution of powers that we have with the regions, now took over everything. If you look at the exclusive list, how many lists that the federal government is controlling? So we are operating a faulty federalism, and that's why people have been talking about restructuring. And well, of course, the VAT issue, which is an ongoing conversation.
No, definitely.
They were fine.
We'll get
These are part of
come back to
the restructuring and all that.
And keep in mind, that some of the key things that I want us to also explore will be if the civilian population, the civilian leaders had more time because they didn't stay up to a decade before the military struck.
Yeah, that's the point.
Just 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
So I want you to tell us if they had stayed up to a decade, if that would have been better.
I will tell you.
So let me come to you, Victor. Now, listening to Ubani, what readily comes to mind is the enthusiasm, the energy in the Nigerian youth, even from independence. If you see the old clips, if you saw old clips of these leaders in Nahuru, all of these people, Azikiwe, Awolowo, they were in their youth and very vibrant. Do you think, because now you said something which Ubani has said amen to, but many Nigerians and Africans watching will also want to know why you felt, or why you so feel that your generation will take Nigeria to where it is. What are those key attributes your generation of Nigeria, have that those who got us independence never had?
Okay, so one of those attributes could be the passion of being united. Like I said to you, I think I am connected to all parts of this country as of today. Whenever I go to the north, the alliance is very easy, especially with the young people. I'm saying this not to make the older generation look bad per se, but I'm just speaking from my own personal experience.
Absolutely.
And when you want to relate with the older generation, there's this attitude of where is he from? Who is he? But when you want to relate to the younger generation, they care less. As far as you are happy, you are there with an idea, you are there with a solution, they embrace you. I did my last year, December, from 2018. I've been spending my Christmas in the north. People I've never met before, people who don't know me before, the acceptance is so strong. And if you will point me to say, if you even look at the entertainment industry, you look at the sectors where you have more of the young people, you will find out that they don't talk about tribe, zone, or religion, or where are you from, what's your name. No, we are united. That's one. Then key. Then number two, we have visions. We have ideas. If you look at the few sectors today that we can say it's doing well a bit, coming from the banking sector, you look at the banking sector and the IT sector, those are one of those two sectors I would say Nigeria is doing well about. They are made up of young people, and you could see that's why those sectors are thriving.
Well,
when we carry that same energy into governance, you will see it. It will be obvious that there's this fresh air of transformation that have embraced our economy.
Well, I'll come back to you so that we can also, expatiate more, especially about the, because some still think that we have two categories of young Nigerians. Those like yourself who are vibrant, who have this vision of a new Nigeria, and those who also believe that there are other quick ways to get themselves busy. So I'll come back to asking you how you think that these people, if they're also a part of this, new Nigeria we're talking about. So, Dr. Ubani, quickly here, We're trying to understand before we start talking about some key solutions, because the issues can't be exhausted on the show today. At what point did we get it wrong? Because the military struck, as you highlighted, and these are also Nigerians, and they were there till about 1979.
Yes.
Too long a time. Tell us, did the Nigerian politician get corrupted by the military, or the military got corrupted by the first set of politicians who came with the parliamentary system at inception of independence in 1960?
What actually changes a society is may not necessarily be the system of governance. I have read of nations, that were under the military, and they experience transformation, and the kind of changes those countries now has actually built upon to where they are today. If you remember that Singapore, or the man that emerged, that took the country, formulated some policies that we won't consider democratic. It dealt with some certain persons. Anyone that stood on his part, he got him out, in order to achieve his goal of building a very strong nation. And he took the country from the third world to the first world.
And that's Lee Kuan Yew.
Yeah, if you go to Singapore, he's finer than most of these developed economies. It's the first world. It is just transformative leadership. So the military also that took over did not have any plan. There was no plan. They were also corrupted by some of those variables, tribalism, self-interest, and all that. Remember that it was Gowon that took, when Aguirre was killed. I think that one did not last up to 3 or 4 months. Gowon took over, and he's a very young man, and surrounded by certain cabals too. He was there till the 70s when he was overthrown by Moritala. Moritala was killed by Dimka, and then the next person that took over was Obasanjo. Obasanjo was the unwilling leader. Remember that there was no time he planned to take over administration, so mistakes here and there until finally handed over to Shagari. Shagari was not allowed before December Buhari came and then overthrew the government. Then from Buhari to Babangida, from Babangida to Abacha, from Abacha to Absalam. You see, there was no proper, there's no coordination. It was all error and trial and error. So a country cannot make progress that way. Maybe if they have allowed the civilian of the 60s to make their mistakes and correct them, maybe where we are today is not where we would have been.
Just maybe.
Yes, maybe. I'm guessing. Because there are countries then, they were coming to take some of the things from us. They were even borrowing from us. Yeah, they came to borrow UAE. They all came to borrow. The UAE was a desert. I mean, this Dubai you talk about, he said it was a desert. All these Asian tigers were coming here to take one of good things from us, as a nation. So if they had allowed us, with all the mistakes, with all the errors, you begin to correct them, self-correction and all that. Before you know it, one kind of thing will happen that our political process would have probably evolved to the level where we would have probably, gotten to where we ought to be. And that's why I also share his listen and all that, but the only problem with the young ones now, it is this same class of cabal that are controlling the political leadership in all the major political parties which you can access to power. You cannot access power today as an independent candidacy because it's not yet an electoral law. So under which political platform will he emerge as a president? And then what is the idea of the young ones? It is our turn. Let's now jettison these people and all that. Those guys will still come and give them money, spoil them, direct them what to do, and direct them where to vote. I'm sharing his sentiment. He went to North and mixed up with all the young ones, and they accepted him. Let it come to issue of voting, and look at whether those young ones will vote for him. There are people that will direct them where to vote, and that is the problem. And they are the one controlling the political process. So we need to tinker with the electoral system, with the setup, the legal framework. Maybe starting with independent candidacy. So he can come as an independent candidate, maybe from his own jurisdiction where he has influenced people. So he can start, emerging From there, people will say, oh, this man, he has tried here as a local government chairman, he has tried as a governor.
Without anyone manipulating
their constituents, without manipulating even his emergence in the first place. Because you need to win primaries now. And you know how these guys, look at the congresses they're having. I belong to, I mix up with these guys, and I see what they do. Already they're holding parallel congresses. If you see how they manipulate even the electoral, the primary election, before you emerge to be a candidate for the general election, they manipulate it. So for him, for now, the reality is that it will take the needle to pass through the eye of a camel. For a rich man, a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter. For a young person now to emerge with the present setup in place, the present system. I'm a realist. I'm 31 years at the bar. I know how many years I am. I studied political science too before I read law. You need to change the electoral law. We need to change certain system. We also need to change the orientation of Nigerians. Now, these guys have amassed so much wealth, and they will use money to do anything. See what's going on in Anambra. Who are those who emerged? Did you see any man who has fantastic idea, who, dream, coming up and emerging as a candidate in any political party? It's those who are heavy. You must be heavy-pocketed. You are pockets and all that. That's the problem.
Before we go on a break, Victor, you should also really be worried listening to Dr. Monday Ubani telling us, or reminding us of what obtains at the moment in Nigeria. For a country going into its 61 years, of independence, and democracy is still a little bit, shaky and questioned, and with a lot of Thomases, political Thomases, afraid to come into the fray. Some of these key concerns he's raised, does anyone resonate with you? Are you worried?
Okay, so I would say this. There's something I want to say before I answer that your question.
Go ahead.
I sat down and I take a look into Nigerian leadership. If you observe from the first president, Nnamdi Azikiwe, after that time, Nigeria have never had a visionary leader. Every head of state or president came as the result of something that we call them accidental leaders. It was never their vision to be a leader. Something happened in the country, maybe there's a coup, this one takes over. Somebody that was just doing his normal day life, that I've never even thought, that don't have a vision of leading the country. Study it very well. From the military coup, head of state, this one will just die, somebody else will take over. The president dies, the vice president takes over. That was not even thinking of becoming a president. So Nigeria have never had a visionary leader, somebody that have taken out his time to think through for like 10 years to understand the system. We just found out that something will just happen, a leader will just emerge. That has been our problem, right? And if we continue like that, we will never get it right, right? So what we are saying right now, we know that there are people controlling Nigerian political space, right? We know that very well. But the truth about it, there is nothing that goes up that will never come down. There is no system that is permanent. And these people, they are failing and they keep on failing. And the people are tired of them.
But again, how do you recognize who a visionary leader is? How do you recognize a man or a woman with a vision? Because some of the things you raised now, I think is just only one scenario in the history of Nigeria. You had a president who died and another one came on the saddle.
Head of states. When there's a coup, somebody takes over.
But again, it could also be said that that was the vision of the person who he or she had a vision. In the case of all the coups, we've always had a he. So they had a vision, perhaps, and that was
you could see sometimes those visions could just be like within a month or 2 weeks. That someone would just say, oh, fine, we can take this guy off and take over power. We've not really had a visionary leader that sat down to say, I've been studying Nigeria. If you follow all my write-up, my tweets, everything I've been doing, I've been on this feed about becoming the president of Nigeria for over 10 years. I have taken our time to look at where to start from, where to go to, what are the fears, what are the possibilities, right? And I can tell you in one word, Nigeria as a country is set for a new set of people to take over leadership.
Well, we'll take a break. When we'll come back, Victor will be telling us why he thinks and that these set of people are ready and what we can see in them to show their readiness. And of course, Dr. Obani will also be helping us break them into bits and pieces on how well Nigeria can have a better system, especially in terms of the electoral process that can throw up some truly concerned individuals to steer the ship of nation. That's when we return.
Africa is rising. Again, we hear our sounds echo on the other side. Afrobeat and Afropop reinvented, hip life brought back to life, new energy infused into Kwaito and Kwela. Africa is balling. Every stroke, every shot, every raise, we find our place at the top. Taking the helm of real power, new hopes for democracies. A breed of entrepreneurial tigers, audacious storytellers, and a promising generation raring to go. Truly, Africa is rising. And this is where the stories that define our continent live.
Well, Nigeria's independence has long come and is far gone, but every year offers a chance to look at how far we've come, just as we've been doing today on the show and all through the week and even the month of October. Now, the years ahead are much more, and the future will only be better if the present is corrected. 36 states, 774 local governments, 109 senatorial districts, 360 federal constituencies, and more. Nigeria has enough leaders for growth, but ordinary citizens may have more to do. How to solve the problems of Nigeria has long been challenging, one more difficult than the grit and resolve of its people. But the presence of Nigeria is one many have agreed will stay forever. I still have with me Dr. Monday Obani and Victor Ani-Laju, and it's our home stretch on the conversation here on Village Square Africa. Now, quickly, I come back to you, Dr. Obani. You said something about the Constitution. We're trying to break them into bits and pieces. I'm going to say your legal practitioner to see how some who are like Victor and Elijah watching us can have a better understanding of where they're headed. Is the Constitution as it is now in Nigeria friendly? I'm looking for a better adjective. Is it a friendly one towards, newcomers like Victor and anyone who wants to actually cause a change within his community?
I think what they did at the time, in order to accommodate the young ones in the political space, was to reduce the year you need to have attained before you go for presidency. I think they have reduced it now. It's less than 50 years.
About 35.
I think 35 for a president. a presidential candidate, yeah. So which means they want to. But there is a difference, a very big difference in terms of legal framework and the reality on ground. You can even make it 25. But if the political culture does not encourage the participation of the young ones, so despite the fact that they have reduced it, the number of years, of those who are prospective candidates, it will not make any difference. Money runs virtually everything in this country. We still, as I said earlier, use a political platform for you to attend your political leadership. You have to belong to a political party. And the political party you have to belong must have what we call national spread. I'm meeting you for the first time.
Yeah.
I've been in the political scene for some time now, over 20 years. I've never heard about you. But I'm very happy that I'm meeting you, I think, for the first time. And I see the zeal and the enthusiasm and the love you have for this nation. There are certain persons you need to meet. There are persons you need to know. And
that's how it works.
That's how it works. Because you can't just wake up and say, I want to be a president in Nigeria. If you look at the constitutional requirement, 2/3 of the entire 36 states, 2/3, for you to be pronounced a president, you must have 1/4, 25% in at least 2/3. That means that you must be known in over 20-something states in the federation for you to garner 25%, 1/4 of the vote. So yes. So it's somebody who is restricted to a certain environment, who is a local champion. You are known in the entire East, but nobody knows in the North, nobody knows in the West, cannot win election as a presidential candidate. And that's why we advise certain persons, look, why don't you start from where you are known, where you can influence, Look at somebody like Pat Utomi. You know who Pat Utomi is in this country? He's a political colossus. Pat Utomi said, let me go and start even with governorship in my state. Pat did not know where the primary election of his political party was going. I think he was getting up, he was dressed up, they said they have finished the primaries. I mean, you know who he is. I mean, he's not a small fry. He's known all over this country and all that. And they messed him up. In a big political party he belonged, where he has been a formulator of policies, where he contributed a lot in terms of being emergence of President Buhari. He said, I want to be a governor. He couldn't even participate in the primary election. So it's not something somebody wakes up and says, I want to be a governor. So there must be something about this nation we need to study. Apart from meeting some people, they shake hands with you and exchange, there are more fundamentals you need to know. This system is entrenched. And if you don't know those wheres and wherefores, you cannot just run elections successfully and win. You know how many times Chris Okotie has contested for presidential? I'm sure he's no longer interested in that. The system is frustrating. So there are things you need to have. There are people you need to know. There are constituencies you need to. You can't be a local champion and win presidential candidate.
Before I come back to
and
Victor,
you must have money. Big pockets.
I was actually coming there. Before I come back to Victor, how can the country, 61 years, how can the country get away from money politics? By the way, on the show, we're privileged to also have Kola Abiola. He was live here in the studios.
Oh, fine.
And he told us,
one of the prospective presidentials.
He told us what his father was doing at that point in time, even before ever thinking he was going to run for election. He had friends all over the country, even if it's just to visit people for 2 minutes.
That's right.
He had these were the people who had private jets at that point in time.
Beautiful.
He lands, he sees you in your event, and he takes off. And it was easy for people to understand that this man wants to run when it was time for him. So now you just said something about money. How can we remove money? You chuckle on that.
Yes, I need to.
How can the country, 61 years, take away money as a denominator or as a deciding factor in running election?
I don't know when, but I tell you this.
You don't know when?
Yes, I don't know when. You need to eliminate high level of poverty in the system. Yeah. People who elect some Nigerians in Canada, in America, I've seen some Nigerians who win election. They just start, by doing certain things within the neighborhood, start influencing some certain positive changes. And so when the electoral system comes, they remember what they have done and elect them, not because they come and give them a cup of rice or any money. No, assault, no. It's how they have influenced it. So if this man can do this, we have not gotten to that level. What happened is that it is money that makes people to vote for each other in Nigeria. If you don't want to spend money, they will force you to spend, and if you don't have, the moment you come for electioneering campaign and it's only grammar, you come and speak to them, they tell you they are not interested in your grammar. They want to collect whatever they can collect upfront because of disappointment. There are many factors. So it's a thing, it's a whole day. Maybe we talk about money politics in this program. I will tell you why Absolutely. It will be very difficult to eliminate money. You have to come to the level of reduction of poverty in the entire system, where everyone is busy, where everyone has something is doing that earns in money. So when anyone comes with this issue of money or bag of rice and all that, I say, put it. In Ghana, it happened recently, where some leaders came and gave them bag of rice, and they were returning the bags of rice to them. Because it's only a man who has eaten full that will return bag of rice. In Nigeria, when you have not seen a cup of rice for weeks and somebody brings you a bag of rice, it takes only the Spirit of God for you now to overcome that temptation and say, I'm returning this bag of rice. So these guys have impoverished us. What they have done is a systematic, make sure that the people are poor. Systematic.
Victor,
I'm not discouraging him.
No. In as much as he said he's a realist, journalism has actually, put out there on the street, and we've seen some of these things. But again, how ready is the Nigerian youth of today to rejig the system to the extent that these anomalies Dr. Bani has highlighted are taken out?
So, I've heard him, and what he said is correct. He has facts from what he's saying. But I want to draw your attention to too many things.
Go ahead.
Just to one personally for myself. I started a business called ePay. I started it from my room. As at the time I got my license from MasterCard and Visa card, I was the first in Nigeria, first in West Africa. I had a lot of big banks who told me then that it's not possible. But today, those banks are partnering with me. Go check. The likes of First Bank, they are my partners. Right? Let me take you back to what just happened in the NSAS. No politician, and what's it called? The old politician thought something like that could ever happen. But it happened. It happened well organized. We organized it very well articulated. Funds were coming, and even CBN and the government, they were scared. I will tell you, our problem has never been fund. Our problem is lack of idea. We don't lack funds. We lack idea. He
hasn't said funding.
No, sir.
He's talking about
I said that
money politics.
Yeah, I said that to go forward.
Poverty.
I said that to go forward.
All right, go ahead.
Now, as a person, what am I doing today? What am I doing today? Let me just tell you one. My company, ePay, we have built an app that can employ over 40 million Nigerians. And I'm launching it. I'm launching it at my
this isn't about a minute.
Allow me to go forward.
I want us to take it back to the political sphere and not the business angle of your personal business.
Yes. So I'm taking it forward, right? So and we have a target that between now and the election, we want to raise 40 million voters. And we've started the campaign. We are flagging up the campaign on Saturday, the 2nd of October. It looked impossible, but it's possible. There are over 70 million young persons like myself in this country that is ready to change the narrative of this country.
So
what we are looking for is to create...
I get your point. I get your point. Yeah. But again, I'm trying so that we don't lose our train of thought. I'm trying to bring it back to his, worries, which is everybody's worry, which you already said you agree to, and it is money politics, buying the votes, feeding the hungry to make them, vote for you.
Yeah.
So how are you going to change that?
How do we intend to change that? Is to create jobs. Create jobs. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what my focus before the election time is to create more jobs for young Nigerians. And I've been doing that in the past. I might not be known in the political space, but within the fintech industry, within the IT industry, I know I'm not a baby. I've been running a company for over 25 years.
And these young Nigerians, are they registered voters? Because, you know, another problem.
Yes, that is the issue. And that is why I told you.
I mean, I'll let you land. Apologies, I'll let you land. You know, sometimes this whole argument can be very, very
intense.
Yes, intense, especially in the social media.
Yeah.
But of the social media,
yes, you don't see.
You don't get to see these people.
The truth about it is that that's a half truth. Let me give you an instance. 2019, during the registration, I was picking people with my own car from their houses, their offices to go and register. I was able to do that with my family and friends. But guess what happened? Majority of them did not get their voters card. Why? Because these old politicians make sure that they don't get their voters card to vote them out. But we allowed it to fly. But come 2023, we will not allow it to fly. It's not as if we don't know what to do. We know, and we have started working. First thing first is to get good number of persons to register. Our present president today is in that office with just 60 million votes. And we have over 80 million young Nigerians that is thinking like myself. What we need to do is to mobilize those people. Even if we get 30 million voters, that we can say these people, even with your 10,000 naira, they cannot sway, right? Forget it. We have the winning points. But we are not saying
So the president is there with how many votes?
60 million.
16.
16. 1-6.
Was he didn't get up to 16?
Yes.
Is it not up to 16?
It's not, between 14 and
within 13 and 14. No, it's not.
Do you understand what I'm saying? That is something that we can produce. But what have never been there is, like you said, getting enough of us to register. And after registration, getting them to have their PVC to vote. And that is where we are taking it up. We are talking with ourselves. Our focus is the young people, because no matter what you're going to say today is that we are not putting out the older generation. What have been happening is the older generation have been working while we have been watching. But we need to change that narrative where we are working while they are advising, right? But the truth about it is we have to come to the table.
And again, you also have to be careful the kind of advice you take and who you get. I know who you take the advice from.
I want to respond to it's a good thing, but we must get the electoral system right, maybe with the issue of e-voting and e-transmission of the result, before the votes of these people you are banking on can count. You know, there has been this ongoing conversation and argument as to
it's still on. It's still on. Even as at this morning, INEC said
beautiful.
That's the start. For me, it's not a debate.
Yeah,
the government have empowered INEC to conduct election.
But if the
INEC
electoral
have
law,
that decision,
if the law is made in order to now subject INEC to other authority before they can, transmit result electronically, it's going to be a problem. And so that's why our attention should be focused on what is presently playing out in the National Assembly, because the legal framework is key. They are saying they now want to subject INEC, contrary to the provisions of the Constitution, to NCC and to the National Assembly, Senate itself. And this is wrong.
100%.
So it is important that we must also be interested in the legal framework in order for our votes to count, because these people are not ready to yield political space,
at all,
even for the younger ones, And so that's why they will keep on using the old system that frustrates these young ones that want
and
to.
That's why the old system is failing.
There are a lot of young ones who have made adequate effort, in order to engage the political, but they have been frustrated out of the space. Are you following me? And I wish you, with all these good ideas and this fantastic, I want to know you. I want to know who you are, and then probably bring you up, to a certain level also, where you will meet some more people and all that with this bright idea and this issue of employment you want to create for Nigerians, and then convert economic power into political power. That is actually what you are coming from the angle of the economy. And that, look, if I do this for you guys, then give me political power. I will be able to change the entire country. So it's a good angle you are coming from. And I think that we owe this country a duty, to support people like you, to actualize your and the ambition in order to get the country to where we're supposed to be. Yes,
let me comment here
yes,
now,
sir. Yes, sir.
as we're closing.
Yes.
We're actually winding
okay,
down.
okay.
But let me come to you first, Victor, before I come on. Because I want you to weigh in on what has happened in Zambia, because Africa is watching us today. And some of the beauty of African democracy is the kind of change that has been witnessed, where Hakainde Hichilema, the new president of Zambia, was able to, unseat the incumbent. And, for a lot of other people, and you also reminded us of what has happened in Ghana. So we're looking at what Nigeria can learn from other African democracy. Today, in South Africa, they are on the local government election, and it's so heated that you would think that it is the presidential election. So we're trying to see how we can get some of these things, as highlighted by you, looking at the Constitution, looking at the electoral process, if we can actually replicate some of these things in Nigeria that has, I don't know, is Nigeria still the giant of Africa?
No. Physically,
giants.
Yeah, he's a sleeping giant.
Okay,
for people like him, can wake Nigeria.
Victor, Victor, how can we wake the sleeping giant?
First thing first is to allow or to assist or help or support young visionary leaders. We need to have a Nigeria that have leaders that have vision, a clear-cut vision, and they are ready to unite Nigeria. That is not speaking from the mouth of tribe, that is not speaking from the mouth of religion, that is not speaking from the old system, right? When we are able to achieve this, we will get a Nigeria that is working for all. And that is why I say this that I'm saying. It's still a shame that the older generation are still not doing anything to move power to the next generation. There is no country, there is no system on earth that is built around just some set of few people. Every wise leader need to think beyond themselves, need to think the next 10 years, what will it be? The next 15 years, what will it be? Need to think generational. When you do that, you create more room for fresh ideas. You create more room for new innovation that will bring for development. Development is not a process, it's a product that have gone through a process. And the finished product is what you see, what we call today development. And number two, we need to learn how to engage our young citizens, because we made up over 75% of the population of Nigeria. If you leave the young ones behind, the country will not go anywhere.
Let me quickly bring in Dr. Mondo Bali here so that we can close. And I'm hoping that really we'll come back and talk about money politics.
Yeah, I will be ready to do this.
Because
I want to be here.
Sure.
Yes, I think I'm going to dedicate just an hour for us to look at that one. But quickly here, how can Nigeria bounce back, looking at some of these complaints and concerns you've raised? And I like the fact that you made me ask Victor that question, how we can wake the sleeping giant. So is it sleepy or sleeping? Is it sleeping or sleepy?
It's sleepy.
It's sleepy, but it's not sleeping. So it's a little bit,
we can wake him.
So help us here.
People like Victor, of this world, can really reawaken the entire country. I'm happy with the good story you told about the happenings in Zambia, in South Africa and all that. We need to deepen, democratic culture where people's vote can count. That has always been the problem with African continent. People's vote do not count. You have leaders who have been there for years and now ready to quit power for the younger generation, which is what he's saying. We must begin to think generational. Who are we going to hand over power to, and what power are we handing over to them? Think about the country itself. We've made our mistakes, Suleiman, and then we must not continue on that path, which we have treaded that has not taken us anywhere. We need now to rethink, rejig, and then think about the correctional measures we need to take positively now for Nigeria, because so many mistakes have been made, and where we are is not where we're supposed to be. If you travel outside this country and go to some of these developed nations and see the level of life that these guys are living, you come back here, the moment you are entering the country, you start crying. There is this particular pain in your heart. What is it that we have done wrong that God will not forgive us, so that we can be able to enjoy the kind of things God have created? And if you stay in this country, Sulaiman, and die in Nigeria, I'll tell it to my church members, to my friends, if you go to heaven, God may not be too happy with you, because he will tell you didn't explore the world. There are beautiful world out there that human beings have sat down to think generational and create a conducive environment. Nigeria is not conducive for living, because of bad leadership, but we must not allow it to continue. People like Victor and others should be encouraged so that we can take over this nation and have a country where the generation that are coming will be very proud of. We made our mistakes. We need to correct them now. That is my basic advice to generation that are born and those who are yet to be born, that we need to correct those mistakes. We have made so many mistakes and it's following us and it shouldn't continue.
I'm excited that you're here, honestly, because for Victor and I, it's good that we have someone who's actually
like you.
seen, even before, the independence, what life was. But again, Victor, Ani-Laju, Mandubani, many thanks for being such nice company. Friday, October 1 will mark Nigeria's 61st anniversary. And as a Nigerian anywhere in the world, you have a role to play in national development, as highlighted by Mandubani and Victor. To our viewers out there, see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.